What is Guantanamo today? It began as a secretive place, isolated from the world, so as to hide the truth of what took place within its walls. In 2012, now recognised across the world, it represents a decade of damage to human rights. And not just in the US. Guantanamo has politicised justice internationally by portraying detainees as having no human rights. Nearly 5,000 miles away in Mauritania, the family of Guantanamo detainee Mohamedou Ould Slahi wants to know why he has not been sentenced or released.
تم اعتقال ابننا في نوفمبر 2001 من قبل السلطات الموريتانية، وتم ترحيله إلى الأردن ثم أفغانستان ومن ثم إلى غوانتنامو منذ حوالي 11 عام وهو غائب عن العائلة. تعرض لكثير من التعذيب والمشاكل. إنه عار على دولة تدعي الديمقراطية أن تعتقل سجين لأكثر من 10 سنوات دون أن تقدمه إلى العدالة أو تطلق سراحه. نحن لا نريد إلا أن يطلق سراح ابننا أو يقدم إلى محكمة مدنية عادلة.
There's a number of detainees who the US administration or its courts have already said should be released, and the reason they remain there is very difficult to understand in anything other than terms of simply people playing politics. Clearly, in international armed conflicts, states can recognize people they capture as prisoners of war and hold them until the war is over. What's happened in this case is the United States has defined for itself a kind of war that would seem to go on everywhere and forever, and then use that concept as the basis to assert the right to indefinitely detain people.
Many countries now cite Guantanamo and the example of US counter-terrorism policies to justify their own human rights violations. Mauritania recently adopted new anti-terror laws and have held detainees incommunicado and tortured them to extract confessions. And now in the US itself, President Obama has signed the National Defense Authorization Act, amid accusations that he has signed into law the use of indefinite detention. The president responded saying his administration would not authorize indefinite military detention without trial of American citizens, because to do so would break the most important traditions and values of the nation. No explanation is given as to why it should be more acceptable to deprive non-citizens of their basic human rights in this way. But then, as is typical in discussions of Guantanamo in the USA, the president's statement makes no mention of human rights at all.
One of the big challenges for Amnesty International is the very widespread acceptance in the United States, not only by politicians, but by the judiciary and by many people in the public, of this idea that the United States is at war, that there are exceptional circumstances in which human rights have to be set aside. And the issue of Guantanamo has become highly politicized in domestic US politics.
I tell you, as we speak, the threat to our homeland is growing.
Looking for reasons why things are happening with Guantanamo, as between Congress, the President, and the courts, does not always yield a rational answer. And all of this is kind of fed by a politics of fear that's being exploited in the United States at the moment.
Clearly, among the people who are still at Guantanamo Bay, there are individuals who can and should be brought to justice for their roles in relation to terrorist attacks. But there is an entire law enforcement system in the United States that has essentially been ready and waiting since September 2001 to bring those individuals to justice. So why, after a decade of detentions at Guantanamo, has only one detainee been transferred to the USA for prosecution in an ordinary federal court? When will America put liberty and justice before this politics of fear? Sign our petition to be delivered to Barack Obama before his 2012 State of the Union address.